Hey, this is Stephen Amell, and you are listening to Tomorrow's Legends, the podcast. Don't fail your city.
During a trip through time, the Legends were forced to land the Waverider in Blue Valley, Nebraska, where they discovered a young superhero.
Yes.
About to take flight.
That's cool.
Who are you?
I'm Stargirl.
Yes, welcome back to Blue Valley. Good thing there aren't any green fires happening here as we cover Chapter 10 of Stargirl Season 2. I am still very confused about the age across decades thing, The Flash.
And I'm holding out hope for Courtney as she's stuck in the Shadowlands. I'm X-Force 11.
He's back!
And now, here are your hosts, the Scarlet Speedster himself, The Flash, the Maid of Mischief Harley Quinn, and the Blue Beacon of Hope, X-Force 11.
Hello, Legends.
Gideon, you should say hello, X-Force. They would just be suitable. Well, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, X-Force. We are going to jump right into this Chapter 10 of Stargirl because we got no news, no nothing going on. So let's get right to it. What's your rating for this one?
I gave this one 8 dust-free garages.
Yeah.
For a garage that hasn't been used in 10 years, that's pretty immaculate. They've got, very good HVAC system there in the in the JSA.
So true.
But we got more history on the JSA. We got to look into a little bit of Jennie and Todd's life. We got the Shades background and so much more this episode. It was just so good. And we may have gotten some introductions to next season's enemies. We'll see. What?
Oh, you'll have to tell us about that. I didn't pick up on any new enemies. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Well, I'm notching this one down a little bit this week. I'm giving it a 7 trips down memory lane. Now, while I agree with you that this one had a lot of great historical moments, like some Shade backstory and origin, there is a few things that have me knocking it down a couple points this week. Because I found this one lost a lot of its edge of the last couple. There just wasn't that creep factor that kept you waiting for something to happen. In fact, there was nothing scary at all in this one, so I wasn't as drawn in, unfortunately, because the whole season has been like that, and now they kind of took it away this episode, and I felt like something was missing. That, and I'm starting to kind of worry about how this season is going to end. We were hinting on it last week with Dreamweaver there. I'll get to that point later in our discussion. I'm worried about the end, because we're kind of getting really close to it, and I feel like we're running out of time, so I'll pick back up on that one. That and Courtney had me yelling at her this episode. Her attitude towards Pat is uncalled for, and we're going to talk about that too. I'm just so glad that Jennie basically shoved her foot in her mouth for her in that one scene without even knowing it. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about all that stuff, but still, a 7. Because there was some good historical moments to it, it kind of evened it out for me, which gives it the average 7. I think 7 is an average score where it's not amazing and it's not sucky, it's just right in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, I took it down myself, a full point because of Courtney's whininess in this episode.
Awesome stuff. Well, let's get into this one.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
Where are we starting off this week?
All right, we're going to start off with Starman and Pat. So this opening scene is my favorite scene, so we'll talk about it a little bit more there. But it raises some questions for me.
Yeah, and I probably got a big one for you right here. I will try to save the favorite part of your scene for when we get to that, and we can dive into it then. But I do want to bring something up, and this is probably the biggest part of the discussion for this episode for me. I think, because me and Dreamweaver brought it up last week. We tried to uncover it a little bit here, and it's the time displacement thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not making sense. You can't open 2 shows in a row now with the scene saying decades ago and then have Pat looking exactly the same, wrinkles and all. And I know this leads into your next thoughts, but I just want to bring up this idea that Patty Spivot actually brought to light when we were sitting there watching, because I paused the episode and talked to her about this, and she reminded me of something. We had the Shining Knight last season as the janitor.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember in his story, there was something with him and Pat about being taken out of their time periods. Because the Shining Knight's been around since King Arthur days. So he's like way time displaced. And then somehow Pat was also back then, with not all the way back, but somewhere back in time. And they've both somehow come forward to the current time, 2021, and have not aged. I can't remember all the details. I might have to go back and review season 1. I'm wondering if you had any details to fill it in there, because I was talking to a coworker about it today. If you guys remember Arc Phase, we haven't heard from him in a long time. And we got into the discussion, and I got really flustered about this, because I thought, decades means a decade is 10 years, but if they're pluralizing it, you're talking 20, 30, 40 years possibly that they're back in time. And Pat should either be extremely young back then, or in the present time now, he should be extremely old. He should have a lot of wrinkles and gray hair, because if he's roughly 30 or 40 years old right now, it would put him in his 70s if it was 20, 30 years later. So it doesn't make sense to me that he's looking exactly the same. So I was trying to piece that together, and I can't imagine this to be a writing mistake, that they're just completely forgetting to change him up with some makeup or whatever. There's got to be something in the story, and it's driving me crazy that they haven't explained that yet. So I want to know what your thoughts are on that.
So there's two things. There's the comic side of things, that the JSA in one of their battles got caught up, and I can't remember the whole story because we talked about it a little bit last season, where because of one of their battles, they were given, slow aging and things like that. That hasn't been introduced here. So, per the Stargirl wiki, Shining Knight has lived for over 1,000 years. In the comics, he was frozen in ice and then thawed out later by a museum curator. So sometime after the Arthur time, he was in battle, he got frozen in ice, and then in the Golden Age, he got unfrozen. So that was the explanation there. So, but I don't think we've had a in-universe, from what I can tell of the Stargirl wiki and other stuff, an in-universe explanation of what's going on, because Pat is 5 years older than Sylvester.
Right.
So he was 20 when he started driving for Sylvester and his family when Sylvester was around 15. So I don't get it either. We haven't been given that information, but it really seems like that there is some type of extended life going on here for a lot of these heroes, where they're aging very slowly, or I don't know. But as far as I know, and I could research, I haven't seen a in-TV show explanation of how it's going. Because, say Pat's in his mid-40s now, or, around his 40s. He was in his 30s when the JSA got knocked off. Mm-hmm. And then, say, maybe in his 20s when the thing with Eclipso, but I just don't know. The math doesn't work. It does not work.
It doesn't, and that's what I mean. It's crazy. There's 3 different times that we've seen history of them, and Pat seems like he's the same all the way through. Mm-hmm. And I remember Patty reminded me there's something they did bring up, just a very small detail about the Shining Knight being time displaced, and somehow Stripesy was involved in that. Hopefully maybe one of our listeners or there was something about that. So we're going to have to go back and maybe watch that episode with the Shining at the end when all of that got revealed. But it was like a one-line thing that Pat kind of explains something, and I can't remember what it is. And I wondered, that's got to have something to do here as well. But like you said, it something has affected Pat because he's he's aging very slowly. If that's the explanation, he's aging slowly, or he is from a time period a long time ago, and he's been brought forward in time, like the Shining Knight, and he just hasn't told anybody.
Yeah, I don't know, and so I guess we'll have to do some homework before next week.
Yeah, maybe that's why his ex-wife left him. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, we don't have that explanation yet, so
it's crazy. It's crazy. I just have one funny point here. I thought it was funny because the episode opens with Starman bringing in a 6-pack of beer to try to smooth things over with Pat there, and I was thinking, you know what? Other than Oliver, how often have we seen our superheroes drinking alcohol? I think other than Oliver, it's Starman. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely had it in Arrow where, you had the bar where, underneath where the original Arrow cave was, it was the bar and the club was up above. Yeah. And so you'll see other hints, but yeah, it's very, they're kind of holding true to that hero type thing where they're not, overindulging in that kind of stuff. So,
yeah. So it's just an interesting thing I thought of.
So next up, we've got we've got two real quick sections here. We've got a Rick and Grundy, and we see Rick just in the jail cell. He's really down, and all of a sudden, apples get thrown in the window. And so we get several in there, and he kind of peeks out a little, as much as he can, because that window's up pretty high. And so we kind of get the impression that Grundy is throwing apples into the cell from outside.
And it's funny because we hear Grundy's footsteps outside before the apples come flying in. Mm-hmm. But what I found kind of odd is Rick looks out the window, and it's bright as day. And obviously the prison is not way out in the boonies somewhere, unless maybe it is. I don't know. But I was just curious how Grundy is around without anybody seeing him. I mean, is he hiding in the forest a mile away and just chucking those apples?
Yeah, it could be. I don't know.
Because they'd splat. So he's got to be really close to just gently toss them in and nobody noticed. So it's just fine. I mean, it was a cute scene for Rick to know that his buddy is out there kind of repaying him the same concern and care, but still, it's just funny. Like, okay, somebody's got to notice.
Yeah. Well, the next scene up is Mike and Thunderbolt. So Mike has snuck out of the house to work on Stripe. And he's having kind of intermittent luck with that. And over the radio, he hears about this, pink lightning bolt. So he heads out, and you pull up and you see this enormous candy cane, and you see gumdrops, and then we get the reveal of the entire house is turned into a gingerbread house. And I'm thinking... Jakeem is making Christmas wishes now with Thunderbolt. So just reminding us that that's still going on behind the scenes.
So Thunderbolt's obviously made himself appear to Jakeem. There's obviously that story has progressed without us seeing.
Yeah.
And but what's Jakeem doing? Are his parents asking what's happening? We need to see a little bit more. And when are they going to bring him back into the story? I mean, how many episodes do we have left of Stargirl? Is it 13 or 15 this season?
I think it is. So we've got 3 more episodes. It's 13.
Okay. So that's going to tie into a lot of what I'm going to get into in a little bit. But 3 episodes, we're running out of time. They cannot reintroduce Thunderbolt with Jakeem, who... I mean, are they going to just have us believe that he has figured this out and he's going to master the control of Thunderbolt by the time we need him. I don't know. We'll have to see that. Like I said, if they don't introduce him here, well, we got 3 episodes left. Are they even going to bring him in? Is he going to come in at the last second in the finale? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And, I am fine with us, holding some stuff for next season.
Yeah.
And maybe just getting a teaser of what's going on. Because, we're truly in their time universe. We're July 6th, maybe. So,
right.
We had about half a year between season 1 and season 2, and we really don't know how much they're planning out between these 2 seasons. But it could be that we go into next spring when we come back. We could be fall, and there's only been a couple weeks, but we just don't know. So I'm okay. But I don't want the season to end on a cliffhanger. But I'm thinking some of these things are going to be hinted at this season, and then we'll get to see more next season. Yeah. But we'll see.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think saving some, just if they're just laying the groundwork for what could come next season, then I would prefer that. Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, because I think they may have learned a little from last season where, okay, they faced and finished the ISA in one season, and that just didn't feel really realistic. So, you can have ongoing, a lot of these, villains true to the comics would be defeated and then come back later. And so we didn't really have that possibility with a lot of the ISA villains, but, we may with some of the ones we get this season, but we'll see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
All right. Next up is Courtney and Pat. And so we pick up right where we left off at the end of last episode. We get the fallout between the parents and kids about secrets kept. And even though I can see where Pat and Barbara are coming from, I personally think it was a little wrong to keep that secret. And I'm glad things are all out there now, because it's a little too dire to keep things back from the kids. And if you're going to trust them to be superheroes, I think you need to trust them with the whole truth, especially about Eclipso. But let's hear what you have to say, Flash, because we've got a little bit of disagreement here. So
yeah, I hear you. Like I get your angle on being okay with it. They are trusting them to be superheroes, but they're not trusting them with all the information. That's I still have issue with that. Should these kids be superheroes? Because I think they're out of their depth, they're out of their league in every single fight and the villains they've been up against. Let's not talk about season 1's finale. It was one of the worst. So, like, in all essence of the fight, Icicle and Brainwave should have easily decimated this team. Anyway, coming back forward here, I do disagree, because I think the parents are the ones with the experience. Even though they're not true superheroes themselves, they're adults. They've got life experience. And I think Pat was right not to tell the kids everything, because he is protecting them, and that does protect them. And I especially just think that because Courtney is so reactive to everything, and every time she gets details or whatever, she just jumps into the action. She doesn't think. She's just got this dumb reactive response to everything without thinking, and it drives me crazy. So I think holding back information was protecting her, because we know she would do something stupid if she knew more. And I know we've got these points coming up. I'm just going to say here, I literally hated her for a few moments in this episode, especially in that car scene when she was being a little, capital B word to Pat, because I don't think Pat deserves any of that at all.
No,
I don't think the information they kept back from her would have really changed the outcome of what has happened to her team. I think they would have gotten into those predicaments anyway, because it's Eclipso that we're dealing with. So anyway, that's my feelings right now. And I know you got a couple more points. We'll continue on with the discussion here.
Yeah, and this is not in the notes, but I really feel like what we need is, you can have these major true JSA villains, but what we need is more villains on their level. Like, we had this building of a ISA junior going on, and then that totally got demolished by Eclipso. And I think it would feel more real if you're having two groups who are about on the same power levels and experience going after each other. And that's what's made some of the stuff in other universes, like when you look at the animated, okay, you've got the JLA going against some villains, and then you've got Young Justice going against, some younger villains and things like that who are more on their level. And we just don't have that here. And so I feel like they need to find a healthy medium between these big impact villains and some that are a little more on their level. And so, that's what I want. So that's kind of off topic, but that's what I'd like to see, so that we're not dealing with it. So
it's very on topic, because that's the perfect point you're making, is that they keep trying to get us to accept that this young team can take on the very same villains that the JSA and the Justice League would normally face themselves. And that's where they're losing believability. And they're starting to lose me in the writing of that, because it's not believable. Yes, it's a superhero show. Yes, it's fantasy, but still ground it and make it believable, because this is a very strong family-oriented show that has a lot of grounding and a lot of essence and drama that we love. And so keep it going in that vein. Don't start taking us out of the situation by expecting us to believe these inexperienced kids can handle villains that are way beyond their power set. And that leads into what I was talking about with Arcphase today at work, because I mentioned it last week with Dreamweaver. We got in that discussion. Dr. Fate was brought up. Spectre was brought up. The Hawk people. All these extremely powerful heroes could not take on Eclipso. And this show is expecting me to believe that these kids are going to even have a chance, even a fathom of a chance to fight back against him. I can't accept it. And what it's leading into is where I'm worried about where the show is going, is the type of ending we're going to get. Are we going to rush, with only 3 episodes left, are we going to rush into an ending like we did in the first season that is just not going to be believable? I'm very concerned about that at this point in time. And I'll save my next thought for when we get to that scene.
It's very interesting. I mean, the members of the JSA and this family are being played by Eclipso. It's exactly what he wants. Everybody's divided each other. They're all at each other's throats, and that is just feeding into that. And I'm sure, I'm going to hope that some of this reaction with Courtney and Pat is Eclipso feeding some of that.
Yeah.
And I'm taking what's already there and just, feeding into that. I'm hoping that's what it is, other than just her, having this reaction. So,
and I'm with you. That's the little bit that's having me hang on. I know I'm extremely ticked off at Courtney these last couple episodes, but she's also been that kind of know-it-all teenager, and like I said, with a very reactive type personality. So I think it's a little bit of a mix of both, but definitely we saw Eclipso standing outside their house while they're having this big family argument, and he's just laughing. So we do know that he is influencing all of that, and that's just part of him building up the negative energy that he feeds on. So it's perfect for him to tear Courtney down, because she's angry at Pat. Pat can no longer be her mentor. They're fighting with each other, and that led to what happened at the end of this episode.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
So we get some info here from Shade. That poor kitchen is just not going to get fixed. He just lands on the what remains of the island, and he kind of gives us some info about how to capture Eclipso. And he basically says that reforming the diamond will do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, it all makes sense. Up to this point in the episode, it's exactly what I thought was going to be the answer to recapturing Eclipso. So, yeah, Reef put the diamond back together. Now you've recreated his prison. Let's go trap him in. Okay, but how do we get that diamond back together? So it all made sense at this point, and I totally would have believed Jade as well. I mean, him and Barbara had a bit of a communique with each other. She didn't really take to him as much of a villain as everybody else did. So this whole sequence I was buying into, it made sense, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and we obviously know that we see the scene where Courtney and Cosmo are trying to reform the diamond, but it's just not going to work. But thankfully, we've got Jennie / Jade that may can help us. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, it was a little bit obvious. The staff hasn't had time to charge at all.
No.
And we knew it was going to be Jade that has to come in somehow. And maybe this is what's a little bit too predictable for me, that this weakest part of this season, or the writing this season, the story has been a little bit predictable. We knew Jade was going to have to come in. We knew it was going to be her light power to be able to try to do a few things. So it's still fun to see, but I was like, I kind of knew. You kind of knew this was what was going to happen, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty obvious. And so this gets us on the road, and we have this very awkward car ride. And I mean, Pat's apology is really real, and Courtney is just being a butt. And
I had a different B word for it, but okay.
Yeah. But kept trying to keep this a little more family friendly.
Yeah.
But and she's just not letting him hear the end of it. And this is why I knocked it down. Is just I was just so over it. I'm like, yeah, I get it, but you're wrong. And it's like, oh,
yeah. That's the part that made me groan. And where the moment I actually yelled at her, I think it maybe even startled Patty Spivak, because I just yelled, "Oh, come on!" Like I was actually mad at her. To just friggin' quit it already. You don't really know what you're talking about anymore. Just stop, Courtney. And yeah, I mean, we've all been there. We were all the know-it-all teenagers too. But but in this scenario, when it's life and death, and you think you're strong enough to go fight, and Pat's trying to tell you, no, listen to the history I'm trying to tell you, then friggin' listen, Courtney. Like you are 16. You're in that in-between phase of almost being a young adult, and you're not dumb. So quit acting like it. Listen and take this information and think about it and work with it so that you can build a proper plan instead of being so reactive.
Yeah. I really hope at the end of this season we get some, this may have been Eclipso influencing, but I was wrong. I'm really hoping we get some apologies all around between, Courtney and the other members of the JSA and things like that. So,
well, actually, if you think about it, there was that one scene, like I said, Jennie made her stick her foot in her mouth. She overheard Jennie saying a few things, and you saw Courtney actually think about it, go, oh. You could see her start trying to pull the foot out of her own mouth, like, uh-oh. Right. So hopefully that leads into something.
Yeah. So this was really cool. We see a paper, and it's from Civic City, and once again, screenshotted it. Doesn't have a date on it.
Of course not.
But it does have Roman numerals, and basically this paper has been, if you believe the Roman numerals, been running since the 1790s. So,
whoa, okay. But that's all it says is since 1790?
No, it basically it says it's got the Roman numerals and then an addition. Like, So, but if you punch in the Roman numerals, it's like 200 and some, and you so 2021 minus those, and it's 1791. So, but this is Civic City. According to the comics, this is outside of Philly. And they actually used, according to our Facebook group, some shots from inside Philly. And
cool.
so it's one of those things where, Chicago, New York's a stand-in for Gotham, and, you have those stand-ins. So, but this is where the JSA's headquarters are, and this is really cool. We learn from Pat that in the headquarters, every hero has like a work bay. And so I was thinking at the beginning of this season that this was like the JSA's garage area. But this is like, if you think about this is just one work bay out of all those JSA members. Then you got to think about it. This place is pretty big. And so it was really cool to think about.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first of all, you get the secret entrance with the car coming up through the floor.
Yeah.
I was like, that's very Batcave-like.
Yeah.
Totally Batcave. And then I was thinking, okay, if they all have... Well, he said this is him and Starman's work area, so they work together, so they shared one. So maybe there's only 4 or 5 of them if they're all sharing one. Who knows? But it's a superhero base. We saw how big the round table area was and the hall. It's a decent-sized facility, so pretty cool. I like that. Yeah. And then I was thinking, you're saying Civic City is basically outside Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. That's cool, considering I'm wearing all my Philly Eagles gear tonight. The game is on right now while we're recording. But they just were on a car ride for what seemed like maybe a couple hours. So Civic City's not that far from Blue Valley, and Blue Valley is considered to be where, roughly? Like we know it's filmed in Atlanta, Georgia,
but it's in Nebraska, which is in like the center part of the U.S., and that would be Philly, which is on the getting towards the East Coast in Pennsylvania. So
what's that, a 15-hour car ride?
I don't know. I haven't map quested it, but I would guess it's at least a 12 to 15-hour car ride. And so I'm like, this magic of TV, of going between places, like,
Well, I mean, it made us wonder, because we've seen them fly back and forth a couple times on Stripes Back, and in the premiere of season 1 when Pat was flying around in the rocket car. So it made me wonder how far apart they were. So at least we have a rough idea. At least it's within a day's drive between the two places. So that's kind of cool. Now, I want to go back to your point about the date on the newspaper, since the 1700s. If you listen to me and Dreamweaver talking last week, I want to know about your thoughts about my theory with this being Earth 2, how time maybe moves differently on this Earth, in a sense that it seems like all of their technology is keeping up with Earth 1, with our Earth, but their lifestyle, if you know what I mean, the way the humans are evolving and their lifestyles are progressing, it seems to be at a much slower pace, because it seems like every time we've seen Earth 2, they are decades behind us in style and coloring and, that kind of thing, aesthetics. They got older cars, they got older music, they got just the look of the buildings, the architecture, everything seems to be behind where we're at, even though they're in the same year, if you get what I'm saying.
I think that it's maybe that things are more preserved and there's less wear and tear and less, maybe it's pollution, maybe it's just on that Earth there's less, villains and some of that stuff. It is, it's the way in the comics they explained that, like, Earth 2 was to kind of explain the differences between, like, those heroes and the more modern day. It was a different Earth, and it was a golden age and that kind of stuff, to kind of explain the differences, that it was a different Earth. And so maybe this is that too, that it's just, it preserves those things, and there's not as much modern push. And some of the things that impacted Earth 1 weren't happening as bad. You know, maybe industrialization was more gentle than it was on Earth 1. Maybe while they had World War II, it was not as intense as it was on Earth 1. So I'm thinking about maybe why things aren't breaking down and people are not being pushed to as much change as we see on Earth 1. I don't know. I don't have an explanation.
That's pretty good, though. I think you explained that better than I was trying to get the question out. Because if you remember, every time we went back to Earth 2 and Flash, it looked like it was 1960 there, and yet it was the same year to us. Like their whole aesthetic looked different. If it's just simply a writing thing to show us that, hey, you are on a different Earth, look, it looks different, then okay, that's fine. But I like to, that's what we're here on the podcast for. I like to dig into it and say, well, why? Why are they not advancing in their lifestyle like we are? So curious, but yeah, that's cool. That's a cool way to think about it. Maybe their Earth just runs better than ours do, and they've taken care of things. So yeah. Cool.
So we'll dig a little bit more into Jennie towards the end, but Pat and Court find out that she's been staying at the JSA HQ, and they end up bringing her back, and they do use her powers to reforge the Black Diamond. So this was, we knew it was going to happen, and it was just very. She obviously knew about the JSA headquarters, knew and had access to get in. Maybe she got in because she had the ring. I don't know, but it was kind of cool to see that she had been hanging out there.
Well, I guess she just knew about it. Did her dad tell her that's where he goes? Like that, I still don't understand how much she knew about her dad and his involvement.
I think she knew about some of his involvement, but. How she got in, I don't know. But
I'm curious if we're ever going to get to see her dad in any of the flashbacks as the Green Lantern. That would be cool.
Yeah, I would like to see that, but I don't see that happening this season, and I'll get more into that a little bit later. But
okay.
I don't think we're going to see it this season.
So I was a little bit confused here because I was trying to think of Jennie. Like we saw her using the ring this episode quite a bit, and I thought, the last time we saw Jennie, didn't she become the Green Lantern energy and not need the ring anymore? Wasn't that the big explosion of green fire in the sky, and she's floating up there completely glowing green, and she just took off, and we're like, whoa, we've never seen that before. Isn't that what happened? So why is she using the ring again here?
So she doesn't need the lantern to recharge anymore. Basically, she's got that within her genetically because of all of her years that her father used the lantern before.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
Again, this is magical as opposed to more of the Green Lantern, the traditional Green Lantern. So she doesn't need the lantern to recharge anymore, but she is still new at this. And so she is using the ring to focus her powers. But I think, we see in the newspaper headlines that, it kind of gets away from her. But I'm thinking in the future, as she gains more control, she probably won't even have to use a ring. But right now, it's just like her focusing everything through the ring.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that makes sense again. I was just a little lost in that information. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So Eclipso appears as soon as the diamond is reformed, and we get this battle going on. And I enjoyed this battle. I really liked the fight, and I like to see Jade just pouring out that energy against Eclipso. But I just, here I am, Blue Lantern. I just want to see more use of a lantern, and I just wanted more. But, it's understandable.
It's funny you call it a fight, because all I remember is them just standing there toe-to-toe shooting energy at each other. I was like...
Well, a battle of the wills,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. I was hoping for more, too, but then I remembered... Jade literally has no experience with anything. There's just no way she's going to stand a chance against Eclipso. All she knows is that she has this energy now. She hasn't really been practicing with it. She hasn't gotten any experience with it. She doesn't know how to control and contain it hardly yet. So,
yeah,
she blasted a beam, and that kind of leads into what I was saying. Again, this teenage team really has no chance, and they shouldn't. And it comes back to what I was saying about Dr. Fate and Spectre. If those guys can't beat him. And the other point I forgot to mention is Eclipso was still in the diamond when they couldn't beat him. And now he's free? And you expect me to believe the kids are going to be able to beat him? No. I mean, this team is nothing more than an annoying fruit fly to him now. So, again, it comes back to that point I'm trying to make, is I'm worried about this show writing itself into another rushed, disappointing finale. And where I wanted to finish what I was saying earlier is, with 3 episodes left, I really, really don't want that to happen. Right now, again, Eclipso has won. Courtney's gone, and Rick's he's in prison. He's got no power. He's done. And I don't think we're getting Yolanda back anytime soon. There's nobody left to fight him, and we're down to 3 episodes. If they somehow bring it together super fast and figure out a way to defeat him in the end, it's going to, I think, ruin this entire season, because that is going to really, really upset me that they rushed the finale again, and it's not going to be believable, and I'm going to be really disappointed in the writers. So I hate to say it, but I actually have to say it. I'm really hoping for this season to end tragically. Our team, this is, like I said before, this is the Empire Strikes Back of the Stargirl seasons. The bad guys have to win. By the end of this season, the bad guys have to win. Our team has to be decimated. Nobody has to die, but I feel like we should maybe lose somebody. I don't know who, but someone has to come out of this not doing so well, whether they're dead or not. They have to come out of this not doing so well, and they're no longer part of the team or whatever. But they can't win. It has to end in tragedy, and we're done. The bad guys have won, and the good guys are done. That's the only way that this can have a very strong writing finale or written finale. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, honestly, if I was going to write it, there would be a showdown, a battle where you're pulling in the Shade. You're pulling in Thunderbolt. You're pulling in everybody. And you end with Eclipso being beaten back, but at a great cost, and it's not a definitive win. Because I want the best villains in DC and in the TV shows are ones that aren't finished off. They're ones that you've knocked them back, and they'll be gone for a while, and then they're going to come back. But there's always that looming threat of, okay, they may be back. And so that's what I want to see. I want to see us where you've got some unity with the group. They're beaten down. They managed to inch back him from taking fully over, but he's not finished off. And that's looming over their head when we come back to them next season, because they don't know when he's going to come back. And, you look at the other villains that we've seen in the Arrowverse that really stick with us. They're ones where they've been knocked down, but they haven't been, totally taken off the board. And so that's what I would like to see, because that would make it feel more real. So that's my hope for the close of the season. I'm very much like you. I would like to see, an Empire type situation, because this has been a dark season, and I don't want to see it like magically cured. I want to see them like, we've got to do better. We've got to come together. We've got to train more. We've got to have more unity, because we never know when Eclipso is going to be back.
You need experience. Yeah. Well, everything you just said describes Eobard Thawne, Reverse Flash. That is why he's the greatest villain in Arrowverse, because he has never gone away. He's always that threat that's out there. And the greatest villains have done that. You make a very strong argument there that I'm totally in line with. And that's what I had hoped for Icicle and Brainwave. They should have been those two villains that can still come around again sometime. You beat them a little bit, but guess what? They're still out there, because they've got that potential to be a Reverse Flash for Stargirl universe. Now, it's funny that you mention you want to see Thunderbolt get in the fight. You want to see the Shade get in the fight. I agree with you. We got to see what they can do, but Thunderbolt couldn't even beat Shade. He flew across the dining room table and got blasted back and defeated in an instant. So if he can't even handle Shade, what good is he going to be against Eclipso? I know you got a kid controlling wishes, so maybe wish power is going to come into play there. I'm just bringing this up as points to ponder. And then Shade, his power derives from Eclipso. Eclipso is in control of him, essentially, and Shade is afraid of him. So I don't know what Shade is going to be able to do. We saw him get defeated at the cafeteria as well. So these guys aren't enough. We need more.
Well, the fact of the matter is, I think we need all of them individual. See, that's the whole point of Eclipso. Eclipso is dividing people.
Right.
What we need is everybody working together. And that's why, 2 episodes ago, when I was talking about Beth and the goggles, where she is helping the others see through his divisions, because he can't face all those. And the reason why I think he defeated the JSA to begin with is because they were not united on taking the means of taking him out. You had this vote. Okay, are we going to kill? Are we going to not kill? The team was not united. You're not going to defeat him with people having different opinions and different aspects. It's going to take a united team. And that's why I think we may see them come together enough to force him back, but not to totally take him out of the picture. So I think individually, none of them are going to be able to do it. It's going to take all of them coming together to push him back enough to get some respite for, to close out the season.
Yeah, and that's I agree that is something that needs to be done. We need teamwork, and we need togetherness, cohesiveness to be able to beat this villain. Now, again, I still want more than just our teenagers to be able to do it, because they don't have the experience to be able to understand what it's going to take. We need the adults to come in and say, look, this is what you need to do, and then they all work together, the kids and the adults. So let's see that.
Yeah.
Now, just to throw my little Thunderbolt wish in there, I wish for this to take them in the finale. The only way to defeat Eclipso is they have to go all the way back to the island where he was first discovered to send him back to where he came from.
That would be fun. I would like to see that. I would like to see that a whole lot. Talking about the Shade, we got the in-universe backstory of the Shade, thanks to Dr. McNider. And it does stick close to the comics, with him starting off just as a villain who relied on tricks and gimmicks. And, he had in that run, it was his cane that kind of was the shadow power. And then, something came along, and, it was not the not Eclipso, but something in, a revision and a change in the comics, gave him more powers. And so it was really cool to kind of get this version of the Shade's backstory.
Oh man, I to me this was the best part of the episode. I was wishing it lasted longer instead of just McNider telling us about it. I love this flashback. Let's go into that. Let's get like a 10-minute long, flashback scene of seeing him searching for that and build. I just wanted more because I love the story. I love the reveal for some origin of the Shade. I mean, it's just great. We finally got to see where he got his powers from, how it happened, but I wanted to dive into it more. So yeah,
definitely
good stuff. It was cool.
Definitely. And this is where the comics and the TV show diverge, that the Shade's powers in the comics were in no way tied to Eclipso. They're not dependent on Eclipso. Yes, there's the Shadow Realm, but that's more of a... It wasn't like it was Eclipso's realm. It was like a realm that a lot of different people could pull from and go through. So, I'm trying to think of, like on the Marvel side of stuff, you've got Limbo, which Magic and other people could go through. And then you've got the kind of the universe that Nightcrawler teleports through and things like that. So it's not necessarily tied to Eclipso, but here in this universe, the Shadowlands is what kind of ties Eclipso and the Shade together. And I like it because it makes the battle between the two of them feel a whole lot more personal.
It's such good stuff. Again, like such a great origin for Shade. And to me, it makes him not so much a villain, like not a villain in the truest sense like Eclipso is or like, Icicle was. I think he's really more of a gray type of character.
Yeah, agreed.
Because he's not that bad. He's not that evil here. I know we'll talk about him a little bit more in another couple points. So in this history, I just love that he tricked them. The shadow, what did you call them? The people that he was trying to trick with the fake rock that he made there.
They are the men of
the men of shadows. You call them, yeah. I just love that he tricked them, and because of that, he inadvertently got his superpowers from it, which is it's just funny that happened to a guy like that, and now he can continue being the type of character that he is, but now he's got these awesome shadow powers, and it makes him be able to, live his life the way he loves to do it, and now nobody can stop him. It's just cool. He's one of those gray villains I could really get behind and really root for. And even Patty Spivot was even saying, she goes, I really like the Shade. I don't care if he's kind of a bad guy. He is such a cool character. I'm like, yeah, he is.
Well, and you think about it, if they do him right, I won't say that. I don't want the same art for him, but they kind of led up to... He's kind of the same type of gray character that Killer Frost was before she came fully on board. And I don't want that art for him because that would be, too much of the same. But I like what they're doing. I like the grayness of the character that they're doing. And that grayness led to the trickery, and he gets healed and he gets his powers restored, and so that kind of twist that he pulls on him there.
and I love it. Like, I still thought that was awesome, and I'm going to continue my defense of him here because yes, he tricked them to be able to heal himself, but I don't think he was tricking them to be evil. He simply wanted to heal himself and maybe get back in the fight after he's feeling strong again. Because I have a feeling he didn't think anybody there would help him if he told them the truth that, hey, put the rock back together. I'll regain my strength and my power. I'll be able to heal. But it's also going to be a calling stone for Eclipso. I don't think anybody would help him if he told them all that. So he had to trick them.
Yeah.
Because he's he's hurting and he obviously can't heal. He may be slowly dying. So I'm okay with what he did to get his powers back. And he walked out of there. It's not like he was trying to hurt them or anything. He's just fixed himself and he's out of there.
Yeah. And he might not truly know that, some of the research that we get, that it would have called Eclipso. He might just know that it reestablished the connection, which would have healed him. We just don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, now one point here, let's not forget that we have to answer, we got the answer to who Emily is. Mm-hmm. And I was right. I said it's probably his sister from the past, and that's what he said. My sister.
Yeah, good call. She kept him grounded, and it sounds like after she died that he went a little more to the darker side of things. He was a little less gray, and he became a little more gray after he kind of lost her as his kind of moral compass. So,
yep. I mean, how many other relationships in this Arrowverse can we relate that to? Emily was his Iris to Barry, I guess you could do as one relation like that. Yeah. So, and it makes sense. That's fine. He has a sister that he loves dearly, and she was more morally grounded than he was, and once he lost that, he couldn't control himself as much. So
yeah, and I like it because, again, once we get into another section, I think we're going to see some of that paralleled in another storyline, but we'll get to that in a minute.
All right.
So we've got the Beth and the Charles scene, and I like that Beth is standing up to her parents. Yes, it is teen angsty, but needed. And, they neglected her. They wanted her to make friends, and she has. And now they're like, oh, let's be parents. And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. You asked for it by your inactions, and now you're getting the consequences.
Yeah, I'll give you that. And I'm just done with that part of the story. I mean, it's like Beth said, get a divorce or don't get a divorce. Just be done with this story. I think part of it is the actors playing her parents. They haven't been utilized enough for them to really get into the roles. They're just very stiff actors and not really believable as parents or as people or as anybody that have any depth. And that's part of what's bothering me with their story and why I'm just bored of it, because it's just not good enough. So. Yeah. Beth stood up to them. Fine, great. And what I enjoyed about that scene is that she's wearing the goofy goggles and they're looking at her like, what's the matter with our kid? Like, take those damn goggles off. And she's like, no.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering, though, is every time the goggles turn on and we see the glowing green, does everybody see it, or is that just for us to give us a visual reference that the goggles are on?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I have got no clue.
Okay.
But when she does get over to Pat and Barbara's, I think it's that closeness to Shade and his tie to the Shadowland that makes it so Charles can communicate more. And I thought that was kind of interesting because it seemed like the connection was a whole lot clearer when she was there in close proximity to Shade.
Oh, see, I never clued into that because Shade was there. I thought she hacked something because she had a cable going from the goggles to her laptop, and I thought she was just working on some tech and gave herself a better connection, because we don't usually see this big white cable hanging out of her goggles. So I thought that's what it is. I did not clue in at all that it could be Shade. So that's a really cool idea and theory and most likely was what it was.
Yeah, and I think, she's been working on the AI. She's had it connected in the past, but I think it's a combination of being closer to the Shade, and then because he's basically leaking, Shadowland.
So true. Yep. No, cool. Makes sense to me.
But this was really cool. We confirm that from Charles himself, saying that he would never kill, and that Shade saved him from the ISA, but he got sucked into the Shadowlands, and it was probably not intentional. And so I loved it. Loved that confirmation.
I loved it too, for a couple reasons. It's a cool confirmation, but again, I nailed that prediction. Chalk up more points for Flash here on the prediction list. I'm on fire this season. But yeah, I mean, even McNider says Shade isn't that bad. And so we're getting all of this information, our heroes are getting this information, that he's not that bad of a guy. And if he saved McNider, and I even liked part of the story too, where he says, yeah, he just, he may have pretended to be a villain with the team for a while for his own amusement, but he didn't really want to be part of all of that. So there was just there was so much cool Shade stuff that really saved this episode, and it was fun.
Yeah. And he is, Charles is able to open up all those files on Eclipso. And I really liked that. There was so much information on screen. I mean, you could do screenshot after screenshot, and you could probably get a whole lot more. I mean, there was the shots of Diablo Island, the ceremonies, the history. There was just so much there. It was just so much. But the info was a little too much, a little too late.
It was a lot, and I wonder if you did screen capture a lot of it, how much of that stuff was actually fully fleshed out or just gibberish if you actually looked at it, because would the editors actually put that much time in it? Who knows? But there's no way Beth could keep it. They made it look like she was reading all of it, and I just can't see her being able to read that fast. She doesn't have a flash brain. But I was hoping for more flashback scenes to the history of the island mixed in, because we seem to be getting all these little tidbits of flashbacks. So I thought when she was looking at all the historical documents, we might actually zoom into one and boom, we get a flashback scene. And then we come back out. She talks to McNider a little bit more, and she zooms into another one, and we see a flash. That would have been really cool.
Oh yeah, that would have been cool. So maybe if we had gotten a 15-ep season.
Yeah. And you know what? This episode was actually really short. It was actually 40 minutes on the nose. That was it. Take out all the commercials, take everything out, because the downloads that I get for our editing and stuff, everything, all the commercial breaks, all the titles are all taken out of it. From start to finish, 40 minutes. That was it. So this was actually a really short episode.
Yeah. All right. Closing out, this may have been a small section in the story, but for me, this leads up to a lot of things about I'm thinking what's going to happen next season, and some things that we've kind of got a little bit of a parallel. So this is the Jennie and Todd section. And Jennie's been on the road trying to find her brother. She goes to the orphanage. She goes to the where the records were kept, and she's just losing control of her emotions, but she's finding info on her brother. And we find out that he was arrested, but taken not to jail, but this Helix Institute. And so he's disappeared. And when they first said that, I'm like, he was sucked into the Shadowlands, but that doesn't look like what's happening. So here we go. This is very interesting. And so, Flash, ask your questions.
Well, I'm going to draw it back first to what you said earlier, that I'm hoping her story is something that leads into season 3, because I think we don't have enough time now to flesh this out properly. Mm-mm. So I don't want them to rush it where, she suddenly finds her brother and they're a tag team duo. Boom, they come in and save the day, or something silly like that. Or she suddenly is powerful enough and understands her powers enough that she can come defeat Eclipse. So I want this to be put aside until season 3. And then we come back to it and be able to dive into it properly. Now, the question I have, you're talking about her brother. And powers. Did we know he has powers? I can't remember if that was given to us when they introduced Jade or not.
So in the show, no. But according to the comics, these two, both brother and sister, had powers. She's the light side, he's the dark side. He, in the comics, is Obsidian, who we saw in Season 2 of Legends fighting with the JSA. He's the one that clouded up the skies.
Oh, yeah.
And, so he is very much in the JSA. But here is the thing. His powers are closely tied to that of Shade's because of what he can do, and tied to Eclipso's dimension. And in the comics, Eclipso uses him. And so here is where I want to see them go, and they're starting to build stuff up for next season. You've got a sister of the light and a brother of the darkness, where you have the Shade, who was more of a gray character, and his sister kept him kind of grounded and balanced out. You've got Eclipso using a hero's kid and really, doing a lot of machinations behind the scene. So there's so much richness that can be taken from this aspect. And I really see it's a storyline that we can take forward. So if you just push Eclipso to the back, where you might think they have gotten rid of him, but somehow he's getting in and using Todd, I don't know. But that's one way that they can go. So I'm excited about that. Because, yes, he is a JSA hero, but, yes, he's also been used by Eclipso and used for nefarious purposes. And so, I'm kind of hoping that they take this forward as a plot line.
See, that all sounds fantastic for Season 3 story. I mean, maybe we're losing Rick and Yolanda completely, and we need to build a new team. So in comes Jade and Obsidian. They're the brother-sister part of the team, and we get Thunderbolt next season. Maybe we're getting new members. Maybe it's going to be like a Legends thing where members are coming and going to rebuild the JSA, or the JSA is just going to keep on growing. I mean, we know in the DC Comics there's hundreds of members in the JSA, so maybe we don't lose Rick and Yolanda. Maybe it's just the team just continues to grow and build. So next season we've got Jade and Obsidian, a brother-sister duo. That would be really, really cool. A light and a dark. And story you just explained about Obsidian, he's a superhero, but he struggles because he's constantly being tugged towards the dark side because of Eclipso. That would be cool. I mean, that gives him depth. That gives him something to worry about, something to follow. How does Jade tie into that? Well, she's always worried about him. I don't know. I think it's cool. I'm just looking forward to that. It sounds very exciting for Season 3 possibilities. Don't give it to us this season.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping. And once again, I'm going to highly recommend, let me just pull up so that I get the correct title. So it is JSA, it is the 99 through 2006 run, and it's basically the first 5 books there really give a background of how the new JSA kind of took over from the older JSA, and a lot of things that we're seeing played out here in Stargirl are taking its cues there, and Obsidian is one of those. So I would highly recommend checking that out.
Oh yeah.
So one part that's not in it is we talk about this Helix Institute. And so this is a tie back to a villain group called Helix. And so what happened is there's this nefarious guy who took kids with babies with powers and basically told their parents that they died in childbirth, and then kind of raised them very amorally without like a real sense of right or wrong. And this group of like 6 grouped together and formed Helix. And so one of those we get a mention of here in the phone call by the nurse was Mr. Bones. Okay. And this group, this Helix, clashed with another hero group, Infinity Inc.
Oh, Infinity Inc. I've heard of. Okay.
So Infinity Inc. is like Earth 2's version of the Titans, the Teen Titans. There were some, some of those younger members of the JSA who kind of like, okay, I'm going to go over here and form this group and be with these kids who are a little closer to my age. And so this is Star Spangled Kid, Jade, Huntress, Power Girl, Brainwave Jr., Silver Scarab, and some others.
Okay, so you mentioned Power Girl and Huntress. So were they younger back then? Because I've never seen young versions of those two.
Yeah, and this is all pre-Crisis. So obviously things changed once Crisis. There was like, a lot of heroes had a version that was like in the more modern age and a version that was in the golden age. And so they kind of explained the differences because they were on different Earths. So like in the JSA, they had a version of Wonder Woman, but it wasn't Diana. It was her mom.
Okay.
So some of the people, that their identities were the exact same, and some of them they were different. So this is, younger versions of those, and not quite the same. And so when Crisis happened, things got merged together. So they were a bit younger, but they were still JSA members, but they kind of went over.
That's cool.
And said, let's be with people of our own, our own age.
That's some cool stuff. I mean, this is the part of DC Comics lore that I am not familiar with. I was a heavy Marvel reader back in those days. So
me too. And some of this is post, digging into stuff. And
yeah, good job.
What really led me into looking into stuff was Bones. Because Mr. Bones, after, some time passes, becomes the leader of the DEO. And it's a very different DEO than what we've seen on Supergirl. And in this reality, he is very manipulative. He's like an Amanda Waller character. And he basically, in the run of Batwoman that I read before Batwoman started, he basically blackmails Batwoman to work for them, or else he's going to, kind of reveal who she is and who Alice is, and so there's a very antagonistic relationship, and he's like very political, and so I'm thinking they're not going to have. It doesn't seem like they're going to go that aspect of it, but maybe in this universe, instead of, he's the one that creates Helix. So like I said, very much stuff that can continue on in next season.
Well, yeah, and maybe it could. And maybe that's what gets them out of Blue Valley next season. We don't have to stay in Blue Valley all the time. Maybe they...
Right.
I mean, they've got a JSA headquarters just sitting there waiting for them. And if our team is growing, maybe the show moves to Civic City. I don't know. But it's funny that you say Mr. Bones, and that's what dived in, because as soon as you said Mr. Bones, and I said the name in the notes, I just finished going through one of the Star Wars audiobook trilogies, the Aftermath series, and there's a character in there who's an old rundown battle droid that was reprogrammed by a super smart kid, and his name is Mr. Bones. And this battle droid is one of the funniest characters in all of Star Wars, because he listens to the kid, he protects the kid, and he's like a samurai ninja warrior droid, because the kid's programmed to that. It's the best battle, because the battle droids are completely useless. But this guy is not. He's actually really useful, but he's hilarious, and his name's Mr. Bones.
So, yeah, this Mr. Bones has his powers, like he is pretty much, his skin is invisible and organs are invisible. So all you see are his bones. Like, he is like,
whoa.
If you've seen Black Mask, the Black Mask, he looks like that all over his body, because you can't see his flesh and his organs, and he's got powers and abilities. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they bring that in.
Is he kind of DC's version of Ghost Rider? Is that kind of the thing?
No, because his is not like a spirit of vengeance or something like that. He's got really powers. Like he would be like Red Skull, but like he has abilities, not just the look. So yeah, it's he's got powers and abilities. And so what I think is exciting is, while we have this introduction of maybe some more villains in for next season, I like the idea that we maybe can see some members of Infinity Inc. come in next season to kind of bolster the roster and give it more of an Infinity Inc. feel more than a JSA. And so, we could see that come in this battle versus Helix. I don't know. That might be cool.
See, I'm torn, because it sounds cool. All of this information you're giving us sounds so much fun. But I want them to be careful, because I don't want a Legends or Flash error here with too many characters on one show where they can't manage it anymore, and we don't get good enough stories for the characters we have. So, yes, I want to see it, but how do they do it? Do they do 2 episodes dealing with 4 characters, and then the next 2 episodes it's a different 4 characters, and that's how we get some depth? I mean, I gotta have faith in these writers that they're better than what we've had before. That's why Stargirl and Superman and Lois are far better shows than currently what we're getting on, Flash, Batwoman, and Supergirl. So let's hope that the writing stays true. If this is what's coming for season 3, then I'm looking forward to it. Just be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. I maybe we can, for a season, have some of the characters take a back seat, and then others take come to the forefront, and then kind of rotating roster. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was a fantastic conversation, man. Good to have you back. Lots of good stuff to talk about here. Let's take that into our favorite scenes.
Shape out and eagle!
All right. Well, yours pretty much opens the episode, so you're first.
All right, I call this one Family Isn't Born, It's Chosen. So let's take a listen.
I was wrong to bring you with us. Bringing you, I thought there would be a chance. Somehow we could find a way to save Bruce Gordon. Because we always find a way. And that's what we do, right? Instead, I brought you to a murder. Family isn't born. It's chosen. You taught me that. My 16th birthday, got into a fight at school. Do you remember Hop Harrigan? Yeah. He and his buddies beat me up, stole my watch. That was my birthday gift. It's an engraved watch. Parents left it on my dresser for me that morning. I owned that watch a whole 4 hours. Then it was gone. I was so scared to tell my mom and dad that I had lost their present. But I did. I told them. You know what? I had no idea what I was talking about. They never gave me a watch. They even forgot it was my birthday. You snuck that gift into my room. Because you knew they'd forget. They always did. I caught up with Harrigan the next day. And I got it back. Because it meant the world to me. Still does. You taught me how to drive, Pat. You taught me how to stand up for myself. You taught me how to think for myself. You're more than a friend. You're my brother. And I know most of the time I don't treat you that way. I gotta say, I have a little too much of my mom and dad in me still. I'm sorry. It's okay. Pat, when Eclipso was threatening everyone's families, Rex's wife, Ted's son, he threatened my family too. He threatened you. I don't know what's gonna happen at the JSA. But I do know that I don't want this to destroy our family.
Chosen families.
Oh, so much goodness in there. You get the true picture of the relationship between the two of them and this history that they have. And you see why Starman always wanted to protect Pat, because he saw him as his older brother. It was just so powerful. I mean, just almost 5 minutes and we just get the relationship between the two of them. And I just really appreciated it. And this series and Pat's family has been, kind of molded that way. And the whole JSA too is choosing your family, not ones that you're necessarily born into, but choosing your family. I just absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I did too. And I think it's so cool to see that these two guys have been friends their whole lives, and Pat's been there watching over him the entire time. That's really, really cool. And I'd like to know more how Pat gets involved. How do they meet? Where does Pat become part of the family like that? That would be really neat to see. I'm glad Starman brings it up, because like you said, it's like a 4.5 minute conversation. I was watching the timer here. for 4 minutes of that conversation, he's telling us about how wonderful Pat's been, and you're a big brother to me. You've watched her. You taught me this, taught me that. And I'm just, as I'm listening to it the first time through watching the episode, I'm just getting angry. I'm like, then why do you treat him so badly? You are a complete ass to him in front of the entire team. You look down on him. You treat him like he's a little kid, like he's an annoyance, and he's in your way all the time. Why? When you guys have this history together, it's uncalled for. And poor Pat's been treated like that by everybody. And although Starman does say here, I know I don't treat you like that all the time, and that's maybe my parents or me. Well, that's not. I know he apologizes, but it's you know what I'm saying. I was just like, oh, like if you love Pat this much, then you should not treat him the way we've seen you treating him.
Yeah, I think it's really he's being overprotective because Pat's the one person that he doesn't want to lose.
Yeah.
And that's he even more than his parents. And so he just doesn't know how to do that in the right way, in a way that like the dynamic switched, because like it's really, the older brother who's protecting the younger brother, and that dynamic kind of switched once Sylvester got the powers and the staff and everything else. That dynamic switched, and like he's like, I don't want to lose you. I don't, and he just doesn't. It's one of those things where you don't have the good example of how that works, and how it's just wrong relationships, and he's got those regrets, and he's just doesn't know how to be that protective brother that he wants to.
Yeah. And
it just plays out poorly, and he regrets that.
Yep. No, that's a good way to explain it. That the role, his powers reverse their roles, and now he feels like the protector, and it's just a shame. I mean, with lines like when he shuts Pat up and says only members get to vote, and lines like that. It's like, come on, buddy. But it still was so cool. It was just a nice bringing together of their history for us to see why Pat was so involved with Starman, and why he knows so much about him. It's great, good stuff. Now we're going to move to what I already said was my favorite part of the episode, and that was Shade's backstory. I called it Shady Past, and here it is.
How did the Shade get his powers?
In the 1800s, the Shade was nothing more than a con man and a thief. He was hired to procure a black diamond, but instead had a forgery made. It was for a cabal called the Men of Tears. They had heard a story about a lost island, a black diamond, and a ritual to summon a powerful god from a shadow world beyond. They wanted to trap that god so that they might use it to destroy their enemies. This dark ritual called for a sacrifice. So instead of paying the Shade what he was due, the Cabal kidnapped him and decided he was to be that sacrifice. But the diamond he provided them was a fake, and Eclipso was already trapped in the real one. The ritual was botched, but it opened a doorway to the dark power of the Shadowlands. A power the fake couldn't contain. The dark energy needed a vessel.
The Shade became the vessel.
So actually, listening back to that, I picked up on two things I didn't hear earlier. We called them the Men of Shadows, but he actually says Men of Tears.
Men of Tears.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool.
That's right.
But then, is he alluding to the fact that Shade is the one that originally trapped Eclipso in the diamond?
No, he was saying that these folks wanted the diamond to summon him. Shade made a fake one, and because Eclipso was already in a diamond. And so, it's one of those things where he gets sacrificed because, it wasn't the real diamond. And he ends up getting pulled into this.
Yeah, that I understand, but it sounded like that the timing of the way he said it, he presented them with the diamond and they went with the fake diamond. And when they went to sacrifice them, it didn't work because Eclipso already was in another diamond. So
right.
Like,
yeah. You're
but
right,
the way they
right.
worded it, it sounded like it made it sound like Shade was the one that put him in the diamond. He had the black diamond, but he used that as his template to make the fake diamond. Gave them the fake diamond, was going to escape with the real one. And then the line comes in there like, well, Eclipse was already trapped in the diamond. That's why this didn't work. And I'm like, wait a second. Is Shade the one who originally trapped them? No, because it's supposed to be Bruce Gordon who did it.
Well, I mean, it's the people on the island, and then Bruce found the diamond. But it's still not. We're still not
murky.
Really clear on everything. So.
A little bit murky. Okay, cool. Well, fun stuff. Let's remind everybody about our Patreon support.
If you'd like to support our podcast, you can do so at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/tomorrowslegends.
If you don't dial, it will cry like a violin.
All right. Get into some feedback this week. We got an email from Comic Geek Kev, and he says, "Hey, Legends, I thought this was another good episode, but it didn't seem like much happened. I mean, some big things happened, but not a lot happened, if that makes sense." Totally does. There's quite a bit of talking, especially around the JSA/Gordon's secret. It was so great to see Beth stand up for herself and put her parents in their place. Still no Yolanda. At least we got a brief glimpse of Rick and the suggestion of the Thunderbolt. We even got a Todd call-out, and it seems obvious that he's still at Helix and is probably being subjected to some kind of testing or something. Shade turns out to be pretty shady indeed, but I still think he's going to help in the end. Even McNider said Shade saved his life. It was cool to see Jade and her ring in some action again, but I would have thought it would have been more effective against Eclipso. And of course, Courtney is sent to the Shadowlands with what appeared to be a dead staff or close to it. Well, the staff got left behind. It was on the ground. She's without it. Which we actually, we'll talk about that after Zemo. We didn't actually talk about Courtney disappearing, so let's remind ourselves to get back to that point. This might change my theory a bit. I think she will find Cindy and McNider there, and when they try to escape, only two will make it out. I think someone will have to sacrifice themselves, and it makes more sense that it would be McNider. But then again, maybe let Cindy go out a hero. Either way, I look forward to seeing it play out. That's
good theory.
And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about with Courtney being gone. She's obviously, here's the predictability stuff again, she's obviously going to run into Cindy. They got sucked down the exact same type of darkness hole. So they're going to be in the same area. They're going to find each other. They're going to have to work together. Even though they hate each other, they're going to have to work together to figure a way out. Whether they run into Dr. McNider or not, and he helps them get out, I don't know. But this is the obviousness of it all. Cindy and Courtney have to team up to get themselves out. Whether they both survive it or not, who knows? But did that surprise you that Courtney got taken out of 3 episodes ago? She's been taken out of the picture right now?
No, because I think it just ups the ante. We've just seen so much darkness and so much division, and it's just Eclipso dividing them even more. And I think it's going to be a good thing to see, like, okay, how are the people on our side going to try to deal with him? And then you've got how are the people in the Shadowlands going to try to get back and take control? And is there something in the Shadowland that can help defeat him? We just don't know. So I kind of thought that we would have more people in there. We'll see where they go from there.
So here's my next question. What is Pat going to say to Barbara about losing her daughter to the Shadowlands?
Oh, gosh. Oh, my goodness.
Anybody think of that? Because
oh, gosh, yeah.
She's going to be upset.
You could tell how broken he was. Mm-hmm. And just imagine, oh, gosh. Mm.
Yeah. I mean, is she going to be able to accept it and help him figure out a way to get her back? Or is she going to be like, you know what, Pat, we're done. I never wanted my daughter involved in this stuff anyway. And now you've lost her. So, yeah, that's going to be a fallout there, which, again, Eclipso is setting up, right? Break the family apart.
Yes, indeed.
All right. So his end of his email says, my biggest issue with the episode is, once again, the JSA part. Joel McHale just looks off in the Starman suit. I can't quite figure it out. Too much padding, maybe? Some of these superhero suits do. They put too much muscle padding in there it makes them look bigger than their heads can accommodate. And Pat seems older decades ago than now. I'd like them to explain at some point how the JSA doesn't seem to age. In the comics, there was at least an attempt to explain it. They absorbed the energy of a magical bad guy, but I thought the acting was better than in previous JSA scenes. Okay, absorbed the magic of a bad guy.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier, that how they were able to have longer and extended life.
Right.
As they were fighting in this battle, and they absorbed the energy there, and that's kind of what kept them younger.
Okay. I get it's a superhero show, but just throw some kind of explanation out there. The tech used to DH people may not be in the show's budget, but a young Pat actor and some makeup surely are. Anyway, I'm giving this one 8.7 out of 10 jail cell apples. 8.7. So did one of those apples come in with Grundy taking a bite out of it or something? Until next time, Legends, Comic Geek Gev.
Yes, indeed.
Good stuff.
Yes, indeed.
Good stuff. Next up is Dad L.
Hello, Cosmic Crew. As we draw closer to the finale, the chess pieces have been put into place for the final confrontation. This was definitely a setup episode. The Shade manipulates our family, but I think we need him at full strength to take on Eclipso. And it's always good to see a Green Lantern in action. I agree with you there. Mm-hmm. I knocked this episode down for the odd relationship between Starman and Pat. The chosen family thing didn't work for me, given how bad Pat has been treated.
Yeah.
So he kind of agrees with you there, Flash. So family conflict is one thing. Downright and continual disrespect is another.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I see your point. Hopefully you heard mine.
Yeah.
I believe there was some significant Season 3 setup as well. I have a theory. We've seen brief glimpses of a person who appears to be Sylvester Pendleton. Now we have the introduction of Mr. Bones and Helix. I think this is all related, as Sylvester assembled an organization called Infinity Inc., which Mr. Bones was also associated with for a time. Well, you heard, as a villain.
Yeah, but he's on the same track that you were telling us about. So, yep.
Yeah, definitely. So good co-thinking there. So continuing, my rating is 8 apples that should have been washed. Come on, Rick. That apple landed next to a toilet. A prison toilet.
And Grundy's probably not washing his hands ever.
No. Dad L, last father of Krypton.
Oh, I'm thoroughly queasied out now.
Yeah, I know.
Good stuff. Next up is a voicemail from Perry White.
Hey, Flash and X-Force 11. It's Perry White here with feedback for Stargirl Summer School Chapter 10, or as I like to call it, Stargirl Grown-Ups 2. Let me go ahead and get this out of the way first and say that I enjoyed the episode well enough. But there is a rant that I need to get out of the way as well. I'm one of those folks who has given Courtney a lot of leeway, understanding that she's a teenager. I remember the emotions and difficulties I had at that age, and so I try to understand that and remember that when Courtney takes some sort of position or action in the show or during a season. But I must say that the way she has treated Pat for the last 2 episodes is starting to wear on me just a bit. In fact, more than a bit. It's just wearing on me, right? And to be quite honest, I think it's time for, particularly now that Courtney is missing in that skin of evil death pool that she went into, I think it's time for Pat and Barbara to act like grown-ups on this show. For the longest time, I've sort of joked about the fact that they're sending teenagers in to do life and death heroism, and it just seems like no one seems to take a hold of the ramifications of what that really means. And I think it's time for Pat and Barbara to really, really take more of a leadership role in our young band of heroes. Now, in this whole thing, again, I will probably say and hope that the way that Courtney has treated Pat because of the secret he kept has more to do with the guilt that Courtney has because of the problems that Yolanda is going through than it has to do truly with her feelings and thoughts about Pat and what the original JSA had to do. So I will just leave it there. I'm going to keep this feedback short and sweet because I'm still getting over a cold, and the throat situation isn't the greatest in the world, and so I can't really be speaking a whole lot. But I just wanted to make sure I got some feedback in, and also give you guys a break from having to talk so much because of all the analysis that you guys do for so many different shows. And
much appreciated.
As I get off of this voicemail, I will be doing some feedback for the fantabulous season premiere for Legends of Tomorrow. And I don't know that I'll be doing any feedback because I don't know where I should be doing any feedback for Batwoman, but it also had a really freaking solid season premiere. So I am really excited about those 2 shows, and I know they don't really have anything to do with Stargirl, but perhaps some of our cosmic crew out there enjoys both of those shows, and I just wanted to let you know that I am enjoying Batwoman as well. So that's it for my feedback. If I'm going to give this Stargirl episode a rating, I would probably give it a 7-ish out of 10 moments where these folks need to be parents. I'm really looking forward to the next episode, though, because I'd really like to see Courtney and Cindy have an opportunity to interact with each other. I think they feed off of each other really well, and they're both sort of in a desperate situation, so I suspect that there will be some uneasy alliances that have to be made for them to get out of wherever the heck they are. Again, this has been Perry White with feedback, and I'm out.
Sounds like we are in tune this week, Perry. Maybe I'll kick Dreamweaver out of the Peapod. You can join me in there for a little while. We'll see what she thinks because she's up next. But I like his ideas and the way he just the way he expressed where kind of right in line with what I was saying with the issues and the problems. So it's not just me that's seeing it. The fact that he just validated what I had to say is cool, and I'm sure there's more than the 2 of us that are seeing those things. So he's right. I mean, Pat and Barbara have got to step it up and be adults now and see what I mean. The thing is, they're going to be torn apart first, so we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So, Perry, also, I just want to say the fact that you brought in a little title episode from Star Trek Next Generation, Skin of Evil, where we said goodbye to Tasha Yar. What a deep pull that was. That was so cool.
Yeah.
You're really trying to see how nerdy we really are. That's what that is.
Yeah, and it's funny they brought that up a week or two ago on Star Trek Lower Decks, and they brought up that episode. And then one thing that you also brought up, I haven't seen it yet, but it's on my DVR. I've got the Batwoman season 3 premiere is on the DVR, but when you're podcasting on 2 shows, some shows got to wait to the weekend, and so that one's going to wait to the weekend. So.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. I know I couldn't get through season 1 because I wasn't enjoying it. I just haven't gotten back to it, but you guys all seem to be liking it, so that's good.
Well, I mean, season 1 was okay, and season 2 was up and down, so I'm kind of we'll see what season 3 holds. So, I'll still have the threads up in Gotham Undercover for each episode, so people can talk there if they like. So,
all right. Well, we're going to finish it off with Dreamweaver.
Hello, Cosmic Crew. Dreamweaver here with my feedback for Stargirl Season 2, Episode 10. I'm giving this one 8.5 chosen families out of 10. This episode got better each time I watched it, as there were conversations that needed to happen actually happening on screen, some backstory into the Shade, a road trip, and a big old twist at the end. I was pleasantly surprised at the opening scene between Pat and Sylvester, and that Pat was the family that Eclipso had threatened Starman with. What a good moment for the two of them. I'm also glad a lot of the other conversations happened this episode, and everyone was talking, Pat and Courtney hashing it out some more. A quick 19-hour road trip really gives you some time to think through things. Because they went to Civic City, which, if they go by accurate comic history, Civic City is a part of Philadelphia. And the establishing shots they used were of Philly's town hall. So I don't know what Pat was talking about when he said a quick trip, because Nebraska to the far east side of Pennsylvania is not a close drive. Also, go Eagles.
Yeah!
I was also interested to see that we got some more of the Shade's backstory here. A cabal called the Men of Tears were trying to harness Eclipso's power and accidentally made Shade the vessel for the power of the Shadowlands. It's cool to see some of those flashbacks here. And I don't recognize the name Men of Tears from the comics, so I wonder if that's something new here for the show. And hey, I think I mentioned something about how they were going to put the diamond back together last week, but I did not see it at the deception of Shade. Putting it back together summons Eclipso, not traps him. And that restored the connection to the Shadowlands so Shade could heal. While it definitely had consequence, I can't tell which way he's leaning at the moment, because I could see all of it as a ploy, a gamble to just get his strength back so he can take on Eclipso more and help turn the tide, but he could still have his own agenda we just don't know about yet. And do we think his sister Emily is real, or was that just a long con to get their trust? Mike was trying to get Stripe up and running, and for some reason thought a robot would be like non-electronic Legos. Smart, Mike. And looks like Jakeem is using Thunderbolt to build a candy house. I don't particularly see how Thunderbolt is fitting into this season, and sure hope that the end of the season climaxes is not the team defeating Eclipso with a long and specific wish. Okay, on to Jennie. She's having trouble controlling her energy blast again, getting too emotional, and has tracked down her brother to this Helix Institute, which is very suspicious right off the bat. And we get a Mr. Bones drop. The DEO Mr. Bones is in-universe. Well, we don't know about an Earth 2 DEO, but we have a walking skeleton. So I'm hoping Gentleman Ghost isn't far behind, considering he was brought up again this episode by Courtney. Anyway, that Helix Institute, which there is a Helix group that Mr. Bones is connected to for a while in the comics, seems pretty shady, excuse the pun, and seems to still be harboring Todd, and now have an eye on Jennie as well. So I expect this to come around again next season or so. And Jennie's light confused the diamond, and hurt Eclipso, like we were all thinking. So I'm hoping, as we've seen light power be able to hurt Eclipso, that the finale ends up being a light show, if you will. And the final scene here was put together nicely, with the information being put together at the same time as the diamond being put together. And I did not see that end coming. Courtney getting dragged into the Shadowlands. Next week is shaping up to be very interesting, and an interesting bookend to being there for Chosen Family at the beginning, and with that conversation happening in the same garage. Alright, that's all my thoughts for now. Until tomorrow, when I write in for Legends of Tomorrow. Your friend, Dreamweaver.
Oh, she is on her groove tonight. All right. You know what? I won't boot you out of the pod. We'll just build on an extension for Perry to join us. Awesome thoughts, Dreamweaver. Yeah, and I just love her writing sometimes. It's hilarious how she weaves words together. We should call her Word Weaver instead of Dreamweaver. Good stuff all around, guys. Great feedback as always. If you want to join the show like these fine folks, just follow this.
If you would like to be a part of the show, you can send in your feedback to tomorrowslegendspodcast@gmail.com. You can also reach us on Twitter @tomorrowslegends. We'd love you to join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/tomorrowslegends and become part of the community.
And there we go. Wrapping up another week of Stargirl. And we're going to move right into Legends tomorrow.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yes, it's exciting times.
Yeah.
Just to give a little spoiler, 2 good episodes this week. 2 really good episodes. So I'm looking forward to just as much to talk about Legends tomorrow night. So get your feedback in if you hadn't.
I'm diffusing what you and Perry said because I haven't watched it yet, so I cannot back it. I don't want to go into my hopes up high. I'm going to come in low, and then hopefully I can really enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to go watch Legends, and then I'll come back and edit Stargirl, get that released, and then I'll be prepped for Legends tomorrow. But yeah, and it's funny because Perry said he doesn't know if Cosmic Crew fans are listening. Well, remember, all of our shows are all released on the Tomorrow's Legends banner, so if you're listening to Cosmic Crew, you're obviously going to hear the Legends podcast too. So hopefully you're a fan of both shows.
Yeah.
And we're on the Waverider. I mean, the Waverider is traveling from town to town to town, and we're just stuck in Blue Valley at the moment because of this weather. So, good stuff, everybody. Have an awesome night. We'll talk to you tomorrow. This is The Flash signing off.
This is X-Force 11. So say we are.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network.